for me, when I hear boundaries, this is what comes to my mind. Sometimes when you hear about boundaries, people start thinking about the wall that you've put. In the African culture, boundary is what separates your house from your neighbors, or your shamba or garden from your neighbors. But as a human being, we all need to have a place where we draw the line. And that line is what we actually call boundaries. And when you think about you as a profession, for you to be able to grow, for you to be able to take your game to the next level, one of the things that you really need to work on is having proper boundaries. Now, in this session, we are going to see how we can set our own boundaries and also how they show up. And so for us to be able to understand this boundary and this conversation of today, I thought it is important that we understand, because some people hear boundaries and the only thing that comes to mind is time and space. But we have quite a number of different aspects of boundaries that we really need to start thinking about. And I'm glad that Purity and Abby invited me to come and speak here at the beginning of the year, and it happens to be the day before Valentine's. So at this point in time, I request that you also extend some love to yourself as you're hoping the world will give you. So some of the boundaries that we need to have, or the types of boundaries that we have, is the physical boundary. I think Florence is the one who talked about my space. So this is what belongs to you. And sometimes in our society, and depending on probably where you live or where you work, sometimes you find that people are encroaching in your boundary, or you find somebody has used, for example, let me use a not a very pleasant example. When somebody uses your towel, that means they are infringing into your boundary, right? And somebody just comes, you're walking, and somebody just decides to pinch your cheek. That is again a boundary. So the physical boundary is your space, and who you allow to touch you, who allow and when and how that happens. And this is very important, especially in the wake of increased sexual harassment cases in the workplaces. And then we have the material boundaries. Material boundaries is where you have things like money. You have things like resources, somebody, you are just working and minding your own business, and you have invested in this beautiful pen, and somebody just comes and takes it, and they start telling you that they will not give you back, on materials, I think one of the key boundaries that we really, really need to pay attention, and especially us in the African continent, is the money boundary, because this is one of the situations or places where we have serious porous boundaries. Sometimes you find people, and you're banning yourself to be able to please others. And we're looking at people pleasing just shortly. And then you have your emotional boundary. Emotional boundary is where you take ownership or personal accountability, where you can be able to own your mistakes, but you're also not allowing yourself to burn because of other people's mistakes. I've had situations where people have been fired and they come there like, Grace, I actually was covering for my colleague. And you're wondering, the colleague is at work, you get fired. Not because they could not believe you, but because you were afraid to speak up. And then we have the most important one as a professional that you really need to be selfish with is your time. My good friends, you have 24 hours in your day. That is such a small period. I don't know whether you guys are noticing. Just the other day, we were saying Merry Christmas. And I can tell you before just a blink of an eye, we will be saying Merry Christmas and Happy New Year again in a few months. I don't know what happens when we grow up. Time seems to just be flying. And therefore, time boundaries is very key in your professional growth. Now, when we talk about time, we also talk about energy, because time and energy go hand in hand. And you need to reserve your energy for what matters. You need to make sure that your energy is prioritized for the right things. For those of you who used to drink, you know that for the 40-year-olds and above, or is it 35, if you drank tonight and you have a meeting tomorrow at 8 a.m., and you actually need 24 hours to recover, you're going to mess things up. So you also need to manage your energy, right? and be able to be selfish with the energy, or not selfish, rather prioritize this energy management. And then we have the sexual boundary, you know. This is the limits. This is to what extent can you allow freedom? This is, are you able to say no and the no becomes a no, right? And then we have behavioral boundaries. What are you willing to accept? You know, it is that time of the year. It is that time of the love. We call it the love month. What are you willing to take tomorrow in terms of behavior? For those who are dating Luo men, I empathize with you. That is a certain joke in Kenya, where there is even somebody who has written a book on how to date Luo men. They are said, and this is probably a stereotype, they are said to be able to cause heartbreaks. So, in fact, there has been a meme going around on Instagram and TikTok where there is this guy that Luo men on Valentine's, where they will be running around on border trying to deliver all their 9 bouquet of flowers to the different women in their lives. That is on a light note, for sure. But yes, we are talking about behavioral boundaries. So as we continue with this conversation, I would like you to think about it and see, where is it that you have porous boundaries? Where is it that you have healthy boundaries? And where it is that you have rigid boundaries? Physical, material, time, emotional, sexual, and behavioral, right? So when it comes to finances, you know, I saw this at the beginning of the year and I thought, oh my God, this is so correct. You might be touching your savings to help someone someone that does not want to touch their own savings. In our professional life, your colleague knows that you have money on money market funds. Them, they have money in their savings account, but they come and ask you for money, and you go ahead and withdraw your savings to come and support them. And my friend, these people have their own money somewhere saved. They don't want to touch their saving, but you are willing to touch your own. You know, these are some of the boundaries we are talking about. On financial boundaries as well, you are still being added to 1,001 WhatsApp groups and feeling so sad that you're not able to give anything in that WhatsApp group or contribute. And that time you are almost sleeping hungry. That time you are actually using a mobile money loan to go to work, because it's January, the month has 19 months, you paid school fees, it's February now, you need more money, I don't know what needs to happen. You know, in fact, if you ever fall ill, anything that will cost you more than 10,000, you need to put people in a WhatsApp group because you are too generous. And let me talk about money, because as Africans, we also have this thing we call black tax, where we feel what? We feel like we owe our people, ourselves at 100%, that you would rather not have any saving at all. You do not have a saving for a right day or rainy day, but you are busy giving away your money because you ought to, I don't know, support who where. I am not saying that is wrong. And you're going to see the difference between kindness and people pleasing. So you have to be very, very conscious about where you're spending your money, about where you're spending your time, about where you're spending your emotions, about your behavior, about your physical space, and all these boundaries that we actually need to keep for ourselves. Now, here is what happens in the workplace, right? It is a vicious cycle. It is normally a never-ending cycle. Now, people come and infringe on your space, right? Then you don't speak out, you don't say anything, you hold back, right? And then that means you're sacrificing your needs. And then what happens? They start increasing expectations. And you know this thing of, we keep saying, oh, can't he think about it? Oh, can't you see? Oh, can't my director? Oh, the increment, can they see I'm working hard? Oh, can they see that I really sacrifice my time and stay here? You know, sometimes in coaching, you get people who come and tell you, Grace, you know what? I'm done with my organization. I have sacrificed for that organization. I leave work at 10 p.m. every single day. I work on weekends. And then guess what? They went ahead and gave an increment to a guy who comes to work 4 days a week. And that is now the first question we need to start asking. What is this vicious cycle that you have been going through and allowing? Because most of this, my good friends, is about allowing, all right? So what happens when you are going through this vicious cycle? People keep infringing on your space, you keep sacrificing your needs, you keep increasing expectations, or they increase expectations. They expect things to happen in a certain way because you don't have clear boundaries. And my good friends, if you want to grow, one of the things that you really need to be cautious about, not intentionally conscious about, is your boundaries. Now, when you have done all that cycle, you end up becoming what we call a people pleaser. If you actually look at a lot of people whose boundaries are probably very, very porous, they have become people pleasers, right? And this is what goes on in the mind of a people pleaser. One of the questions you're asking yourself is, what will they think? Who thinks what, where? And I can tell you, these are conversations in your head. Every time you start asking yourself, what will people think? It is okay to ask yourself just to make sure that you're making the right decision, but not to stop you from doing things because people will ask what will they think. Then what if I say no? You're doubting your no. You're wondering, does it make sense to say no at this point in time? Will I be fired at this point in time? Yeah, in that head of a people pleaser, you're wondering whether you're going to lose this person as a friend. And I can tell you, sometimes when you start testing boundaries, you are going to lose friends. That's for a fact. I can tell you that for sure. You might end up losing friends. However, if you're losing friends because you have set boundaries, then those are very, very important people to lose. Please do not mourn, right? And then you're asking yourself, will they get mad? And then you're also asking yourself, I wish I could say no. My good friend, if this has been your cycle in your head, you're probably not communicated with anyone, but in your mind, this is what has been going on, then my good friend, I am sorry to tell you, no, I'm not sorry. I am afraid I will break the news to you that you are a people pleaser, right? Now, what shows up when you are a people pleaser? Or what do people see when you're a people pleaser? People will start talking about how reliable and capable you are. Oh my God, have you seen how much she sacrifices? Oh my God, have you seen how attentive they are to detail? Oh my God, that person is an amazing problem solver. Oh my God, that person is on top of responsibilities. Because every time you're burning yourself to light other people, yeah, you're a good listener, you're caring. That's what people see. But what people do not see is that you're getting overwhelmed by perfectionism. I keep telling people, my friends, progress over perfection. And my good friend Frida Ovinga once said, perfection is an illusion. So it is okay. I'm not saying that don't become these things that people see. If you're an employee or you're a professional, you're a business person, it is very important that you are reliable. It is very important that you're capable. It is very important that you pay attention to detail. Very, very important, especially in this day and age, that you're able to problem solve. Very important that you're on top of your responsibilities. However, if that is what is going on with you, by the time we say you're a good listener, you're caring, you are on top of your responsibilities, please do not be doing that because you are suffering from in silence. Please don't do that because you have anxiety. You are afraid of what might happen, because you're blaming yourself. We are saying that you are on top of responsibilities because you work Monday to Monday. But my friend, you're burning out while at it. And that could be a sign. It could be a sign that you are running away, not from your home, you are running away from yourself, because there are serious conversations that you need to have first with yourself and with your community. So if you're getting overwhelmed by perfectionism, if you're afraid of failure, if you're suffering in silence, if you have self-doubt, if you're anticipating anxiety, if you have self-blame, then my good friends, you will end up having very porous boundaries. And let me set the record straight before you start stoning me. People pleasing and authentic kindness are two different things. Please don't say you're not going to contribute in that WhatsApp group anymore. Please don't say you're not going to show up for your friends. We have to show up for our friends, but you have to decide what it is about you that you need to protect. I personally protect my energy and my time a lot. Even the people around me know. And I will give you an example. On Sunday in the afternoon, I have to take an nap. I do not care what is burning or where it is burning. On Sunday afternoon, if you tell me that there is probably something I need to attend to, I will show up. But if you need me to show up every other Sunday, I am not present. I will tell you clearly, I am not going to be present. The other thing about my Sundays is my family time. So if you want us to go and play golf, I will definitely say no, because Sunday is a protected day for me. All right. There are days that even in the mornings, I was talking to a friend the other day. She told me she doesn't go to work on Tuesdays because she has protected that day. I'm not telling you because you work from Monday to Friday, you protect a day in the week. I'm not saying that. But I remember I told you at the end of this session, you really need to evaluate and see which aspect of your life and well-being are you sacrificing. So when you're people pleasing, you offer help and being there for others because you want to be accepted, my good friends. You want to be accepted. You want to be liked. You want people to say, oh my God, you're such a nice person. You could be a nice person, but with boundaries. And one of the things that comes up here is you are scared of being abandoned. You're scared that you will be left. For those of you who are protecting your Valentines, you're afraid that they will tell you, no, I cannot do this, right? Now, what is authentic kindness? It is where you support. You show up because you want to, and because you care about them, and because you value your relationship, and not because you will look like a bad person. You do not fail to contribute on that WhatsApp group because they will say, oh my God, nowadays you're boasting. You're too full of yourself, right? You feel drained and you have resentment and you start getting burnout because you want to be everywhere. You want to go to work Monday to Saturday. Then on Saturday afternoon, you want to go for chama for the ladies. Or the men, you want to go for football. Then on Sunday morning, you want to, I don't know, read your emails for 2 hours. Then from there, you also want to go and do what? Then from there, and you start looking at the people around you and you start getting resentment and you start feeling, oh my God, am I the only person who does this? And then you start getting burnt out. And then, of course, we have to link you up with a therapist because you need to go and deal with the baggage. And then you start being very irritable because you're not resting. Yeah. Now, authentic kindness is where you feel fulfilled. Please remember, you're not sacrificing yourself to please others. You are doing it because it pleases you. It makes you happy, right? And then it is sincere, and the goal is to help. Unfortunately, for people pleasers, it's never sincere. It is to avoid conflict. It is with fear. It is to stay safe. It is to, oh my God, I can't do this. I'm afraid and I'm afraid and I'm afraid, right? So you need to ask yourself, am I offering authentic kindness, or am I people pleasing? Okay. Now, I have been talking about the types of boundaries because I thought this was very important. Now, there are some of us who have weak or porous boundaries. Weak boundaries are passive. Ooh, you're just there, anyone can walk on you, anyone, you don't have anything defined. Now, rigid boundaries are also very bad because you don't trust people. You're always thinking that people are onto you. There's something they want from you all the time. Then on weak boundaries, you never ask what you need. On rigid, there are inflexible rules about what you will and won't, You're very static. For rigid people, you know those people you say, oh my God, that person is very difficult. They probably have very rigid backgrounds because no matter what you say, and this happens a lot in the workplaces, your point is never clear. It doesn't work. It is not clean, right? And then you allow others to mistreat you. That is a weak boundary. Yeah. The rigid boundary, they are very quick to cut people out. Right? Please note, weak and rigid, not very healthy. They are not healthy at all. Weak boundaries, you're unsure of what you like, what matters to you, you know, what you need and want. You're not sure. Well, you're just there. You are operating like tomorrow is promised. Yeah. And then people with rigid boundaries, they do service level relationship. It's never deep. It is just here on top. And then they crave, people with weak boundaries crave external validation. And that is why you cannot say no, because you want people to like you. You want people to say you're such a nice person. You want people to say, oh my God, you're such a reliable person. The people with weak or porous boundaries overshare their personal information. You don't have boundaries. You can tell people about everything and anything. Zero boundaries. Yeah. The rigid ones, they have closed off. They are very reluctant to share or be vulnerable. So there's normally a balance. People who are oversharing or people who are totally closed off, they are not letting you in. Both of them are not healthy boundaries. So what does it mean to have healthy boundaries? You need to be assertive. You're not being passive. You're not being difficult. You are being assertive. You're saying, I am not able to make it today. If you wish, I could handle that next week. Okay? You directly ask for what you want and need. Allow me to speak to the ladies here. If you want flowers, please don't say when he does not know. If you want flowers, please ask for the flowers. He's not an angel. Men here, if you do not want your socks and boxers, communicate that. If you want a pay rise, look for an opportunity to ask for a pay rise. If you want to set a clear boundary because you're getting overwhelmed, please communicate what you need. Don't assume people that want you. You know, I keep hearing these people in the workplaces. They can't see. Kwani, they can't see. They can't, my friend. They can't. You know, they are busy there with their emails finding you well. But are they finding you well as a human being, right? You have a strong sense of who you are and what matters to you. And this is what calls for inner work. You really need to know yourself, self-awareness. You really need to understand you. And then understand, do you have weak or rigid boundaries? And how can you quickly work on you? Because boundaries is a work in progress. How can you improve so that you're able to have healthier boundaries? Yeah. And then you share personal information appropriately for the situation and relationship. You're not just sharing everything. You share what is important, what is appropriate. Please note, we're not saying do not be vulnerable, but we call it relevant vulnerability. It is a thing you can read about. Okay. So I want you to take your notebooks right now because I'm a teacher. Please take your notebooks and I want you to read through and answer these questions. Is it yes, no, or you do not know? So in your notebook, let me read this statement. Do I say yes to requests when I am overloaded? And this you don't say yes for the sake of saying yes, but you say it so that you don't disappoint others. In fact, on this one, you can rate your scale on a scale of 1 to 5. On a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. Where do you stand on matters requests to avoid disappointing others? Write that on your notebook, right? Or do you respond to work messages out of official hours, even when nothing is urgent? I have been in situations where it is a Sunday lunch. You are out on Sunday lunch with your children. And then you're busy responding to emails, not because you have attended due tomorrow. When you have attended due tomorrow, please go ahead and work. But because you just formed a habit of always checking your emails, right? Are you often the go-to person for problems that are in the office that are not officially your responsibility? You know, people are coming to you to ask why we are not getting tea today. And you are a technical manager in IT. What does that have to do with you? But because you are the so-called problem solver, we are always running to you for our problems. You are not even the HR, but people are asking you when are we getting increments? It's not because you're valued, my friend. It's because you have porous boundaries. All right? I know I'm not a favorite to a lot of people today. Do colleagues assume that you're always available because you've never clearly said otherwise? Are you this person who people think that you're always available because you have never said you will not be available on that particular day? Yeah? Okay. Do you absorb emotional labor work? Are you the person who is always fixing everyone? You are carrying so much burden for your others. You're the one carrying your whole family. You're also carrying your organization on your back. You never have time to rest. You never have time to think about yourself. You don't even have time for silence where you can actually do what we call inner work, self-awareness, awareness of others. Some of you are so busy carrying everyone's and trying to fix everyone that you forget you're broken. My good friends, you cannot pour from an empty cup. Then, my favorite one, do you avoid difficult conversations about workload or expectations or anything? And this goes about to all your facets of your life. Are there conversations you need to have in 2026? The tough conversations that say, by the way, going forward, I will not. Going forward, I will not. And they will try and convince you why it is important that you do. But this is the part where being assertive comes into play. Not being rude, not being arrogant, not being all those other things, but being assertive. Okay? And then do you feel resentful, exhausted, or taken for granted? Are there situations where you actually feel like you're being taken for granted, you are exhausted, you're resentful, you don't like whatever is happening in your life, and you really have no idea how that came to be? If you really cannot pinpoint what that is, my good friend, it means that you're not clear about your boundaries. So your assignment going forward is you need to figure out whatever answer you give for these questions. They are answering whether there are areas in your life, because sometimes these boundaries, you may have very good boundaries with money, but you really suck at relationships. You may have very good boundaries with the relationships and money, but you really are not doing well on the space front. You're not doing well on the behavior front. So you really need to evaluate yourself and see, for me to be able to grow, because I tell you what, one of the secrets to success that I learned very young when I started my career was that if you cannot have proper boundaries, then my good friends, you cannot succeed. Then stop asking why they keep doing it and start asking why you keep allowing it. I love this quote by Chase Hill. Why do you keep allowing it? Not how people do. Remember that vicious cycle, that every time that you have allowed it to happen, people start having expectations, right? Now, I want us to see boundaries and think about the river. And I decided to use Tana River for this because it's the biggest river in Kenya. And a river, in all sense of whatever, represents movements. If you have a standstill river, it probably will not be a river. It also stands for progress, right? A river represents momentum, right? So there's movement, there's progress, and there's momentum. When you think about a river, you can think about the river closest to you from wherever it is in which country you're in. But think about that river and tell us whether you can picture it. And you can type YY on the chat. If you're still together, please type YYY on the chat. And now, a river cannot exist without riverbanks, all right? A river cannot exist without riverbank. For a river to have proper movements, for a river to have progress, for a river to maintain a momentum, you need riverbanks. No one actually thinks about the riverbanks. All of us are busy thinking about the river. In fact, if you are going on a hike and you find a river somewhere, you'll be very happy to jump onto the river and take your water and all these things, yeah? But you never sit to think about, why do rivers have riverbanks? And riverbanks are these trees you can see, the rocks, the shrubs, all those things. You know, those are part of the riverbank. Now, why are riverbanks important to the rivers? Because they give structure. Now, think about riverbanks as you and your boundaries. Riverbanks give rivers structure. Boundaries give you structure. Riverbanks give composition. Boundaries give you composition. They make you stable. Riverbanks make rivers stable. Boundaries make you stable. And then they create a habitat. You know, you allow other people to grow around you. When you have riverbanks, you have birds, you have other animals. They are mating, they're doing what? There's a whole ecosystem going on because the riverbanks exist with the river. Yeah. And then riverbanks are very dynamic. And that is the same thing with your boundaries. Sometimes your boundaries, because you have to be adaptable. Boundaries don't make you a rigid person. They make you an adaptable person that sometimes you realize you need to change. You know, sometimes people tell me, oh no, that is who I am. I can't change. My good friend, that is arrogance. You can change. You can change if you wanted to change. And that is what makes your boundaries important. So when you have a river that has strong banks, it moves faster, right? If you went to a river and that is the problem we're having in the world where we're saying, please stop cutting trees in the forests. Please stop doing this, stop doing that. Stop throwing what we call plastic bags in the rivers because they are affecting the ecosystem. When the river banks exist, you can see the River Tana on the first image. Goes deeper. It is deeper, and that is how in Kenya, we used to call it Duf Mpararo, where you can jump into the river and have an interesting swim, yeah? And then the river bank allows you to reach further. Boundaries allow you to reach further. Boundaries allow you to move faster. Boundaries allow you to go deeper, not to just have superficial relationships, but have deeper, meaningful, strategic relationships of people who actually mean well, of people who are willing to grow and support you. Not those friends of yours when you're succeeding, they really are getting sad and they are like, oh my God, you know, you clap for others until it is your time. And then river banks sustain life along its path. There's life along its path, and that is what boundaries do for you. They support you, they protect you, all right? Now, when you look at a river that does not have riverbanks, what happens? It feels busy, but it's not busy, right? It becomes very shallow and chaotic because nothing is existing. There's no flow, there's no movement, there's no progress, and obviously, there is no momentum, all right? So, my good friends, we say that boundaries don't limit your growth. They, in fact, concentrate your growth. You're being able to focus on specific things, prioritize, and do what matters. So, when you say, this is what I can take on and this is what I cannot, this is where I end and this is where others begin. When you're able to have those statements, you're not shrinking your impact. You are giving yourself permission to grow. You're allowing yourself to go deeper. You are allowing yourself for sustainable, professional, personal, whatever growth. Now, to be able to be effective person, you must be able to have these boundaries. You cannot be everywhere, my friend. You cannot show up at everything and you want to attend every funeral. You want to attend every birthday party. You want to attend every professional whatever activity. You want to attend including your team building. Yani, your Saturday is team building in the morning. Afternoon, your daughter is getting baptized, and the evening there is a party, I don't know, and you want to attend them every other Saturday. Can do that once, but not every day. You are the one with clear edges. So manage your energy. Manage what matters the most. In conclusion, healthy boundaries are not walls. They are gates and fences that allow you to enjoy the beauty of your own garden. My good friends, the river does not apologize for its banks, and neither should you. Back to you, Abby.
Okay. Thank you, Grace. Thank you so much. Please let's appreciate our send our emoji. Thank you so much. So from what you've said, what we've learned is the first most important thing is self-awareness. So we need to actually know ourselves. So if you have any questions, please let's drop it on the chat box. Thank you, Grace. We so appreciate it. So before we have anyone ask any questions, so I just want to ask you, let me ask on behalf of some people, right? So how can you, what will you advise? How can a professional set a strong boundary without being perceived as being difficult or uncommitted?
So how can professionals, just to see whether I got it right, how can professionals protect their boundaries without looking like they are?
Difficult, without them being perceived as being difficult or they're uncommitted.
Okay. Number one, your choice of language. You can communicate. Now, the thing that we do, unfortunately, is we set boundaries and we don't communicate. When you set a boundary, you need to communicate. And people normally are unlearning because you had porous boundaries and now you want to have healthy boundaries. Now you have to communicate your boundaries over and over again so that you can help people also unlearn to respect your boundaries. Also, remember, you need to be assertive and not rude. As you commit your boundaries, you ought to have, you know what? I'm afraid I'm not able to work on Sundays anymore. I have had no opportunity to rest in the last couple of months, and this is taking a toll on my health and well-being, period. And when work comes, because people are going to test your boundaries, when work comes on a Sunday, you, one, will not know because you're not checking your emails on a Sunday. Number two, even if you see it, you're not going to respond to it. Number three, even when they call, you're going to tell them, hey, remember I told you that I am reserving my Sunday to recharge to be able to serve our organization better. So it is not, you can define your boundaries, but then you figure out how do you communicate these boundaries effectively so that you are able to help people unlearn and get used to this, this new you, for lack of a better word. Abby.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. You can actually pull down your slide. Thank you. Okay, so another question. I'm waiting for people to actually have
I've seen a question.
Okay.
That's why I went back by Florence, who said, can you take back the parting shot or whatever? This is what I ended with, but I also said that no river apologizes for its banks. Okay. You should not apologize for your boundaries.
Okay. Thank you, Grace. You can actually stop sharing. So let me read the next question. How can I put my boundaries and still maintain an organization culture? That's from, let me pick it up.
How can you put your boundaries and still maintain an organization culture? It depends on what boundaries you want to keep. Now, organization culture, if you have an organization culture that is unhealthy, it becomes a challenge to have boundaries because already it is, gosh, I want to sound like Gen Z, but I hate it. You sound like if you're operating in a toxic area already, for you to help people, it takes intention. You have to be very clear. If this culture is what you want to maintain, what about it needs to be changed? What about this culture needs you to change the what do we call it? The boundary. So you have to be very clear about the specific. The thing about culture is there's something that works. Unfortunately, sometimes because one or two things are not working, people end up saying that, oh my God, this culture does not work. However, you have to be very specific about what in this culture needs to change. And then you start now putting those boundaries. If you have a culture that people work from 7 to 10 p.m. and you are afraid that you will leave at 8 and people are going to be mad, you probably are the person they have been waiting for to show them how bad it is. And one of the things that I keep saying is use facts. Use facts to communicate why this is about an unnecessary boundary. Do your research,